Hi everybody, and welcome to our AP Lazer workshop on this fine Friday. I hope everybody's having a great Friday. Weekend's right around the corner. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about LightBurn, and we're going to take a photograph and we're going to kind of process that, and we're going to put it on a piece of slate. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, I really thoroughly enjoy working with slate. It's a really nice product to work with. It's inexpensive. It's easy to get. You can order a ton of different shapes and sizes off of our AP Lazer store. We've always got it in stock. And it just, again, it's a very nice material to work with. Even if you have something where you kind of mess it up a little bit, it's actually really easy to take some 220, 320 grit sandpaper and actually sand that right out and recoat it, and you've got a fresh piece. Typically with all my slate, what I do is I use this acrylic clear lacquer to coat it with. I do this before engraving, and what that does is it kind of takes the slate from a kind of dull grayish look to it to a really nice shiny black, and really just helps your image pop out. This here you can get at Walmart, any kind of auto store, and it's probably around $4 or $5 a can. Can will last you a long time there. So without further ado, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and jump into LightBurn here and see what we can do. Now, today's video is probably going to be a little bit quicker. When it comes to doing photos and doing them in LightBurn, we really don't have the tools that we would typically use in, say, Corel Photo Paint, Adobe Photoshop, things like that to isolate and highlight, certain details, do any kind of photo editing, really. If you are looking to do photo and photo editing, I would recommend purchasing maybe a design package. Again, you can get that through AP Lazer, which would be like the Corel suite along with PhotoGrave. And essentially what we're going to do in LightBurn here is we're going to take this photo and we're basically just going to process it unedited right through and dither it, just very similar to what PhotoGrave is going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import in my image here. We're going to go to File and Import, and into my desktop here. And I've just got this real kind of simple tiger image here. The first thing that I want to do is I want to adjust the size here. I'm using like an 8x10 piece of slate, so I'm going to come right up here to my ratios, and I'm going to change that. 8x12, actually probably come down a little bit more. And without distorting our image, it gives us about a 10x6. So we're going to go ahead and we'll start our origin kind of in the center there, get a little bit more proportionate around there. Now, if we wanted to, we could always stretch this out to make sure it fills up everything. When we etch this, though, we're not going to be really etching the background. It's just going to be the image. So if I lay this out correctly, it should look really nice. So the first thing that I'm going to do with processing a photo here is I'm going to come up to my image mode here. I'm going to double click, and the two things that I want to make sure is I want to make sure my negative image is on and my pass through is off. And then I'm going to go ahead and adjust my DPI, which we typically with all of our photos we like to use 150. And then this image mode here are just different ways to dither the photo, okay? If we look down here, it's showing you the dither sample. So it's kind of showing you what it's going to do and how it's breaking it down. And you can cycle through a lot of these other ones here. I typically find like the Stucky or the Jarvis are kind of my go-to ones. I know there's other people out there that like to use a few different ones. And I've seen a lot of great success with these. Always kind of practice out, test out, sample out with this thing until you really find the one that looks the best for what you're trying to do. So I'm going to hit OK down here. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my image. With my image selected, I'm going to right-click my mouse, and I'm going to come here to Adjust Image. Now, this is an update they came out with a while ago. If you're working off one of the older LightBurns, what you're probably going to do, let me exit out of here, is you're going to see something more of like the show properties, which are going to give you some options like here, which are really the same thing that we're looking into and adjusting our photo. only in adjusting our photo, it's going to give it to you in real life. It's going to show you what it's doing and how it's editing that photo. So I'm going to come back here, right click, and go to Adjust Image. So I'm just going to make sure my DPI, we're at 149.9, that's perfectly fine. My negative image again is on. Now, one of the newer updates that I really like that LightBurn came out with was it's got some of these presets now. So if you hit this little drop arrow, it gives you a couple little sample ones to kind of practice with, but also it allows you to save these settings based off material. Now, with LightBurn, again, I would recommend sampling and testing as you're learning how to do this until you find some really good settings, and then go ahead and save those settings. What I typically recommend doing testing on is go get some black poster board. I got a little piece right here. And I mean, this is inexpensive. I bought this at Walmart for 85 cents. It's a nice large sheet, so I can do quite a few different tests on there. I can write on it, all that kind of stuff. But that way you're not kind of burning through material while you're trying to dial this in and find some good settings. But again, once you have those settings, you can go ahead and save them. Now, we're going to kind of walk through and I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of what these settings do, and we can see it changing our image here on the right-hand side. This is our engravable image here. And so the first thing we're going to look at is contrast. Okay, contrast is just that, just contrast. We can see how it's darkening up some of these areas here, or lightening them up. And we can see as we're lightening that contrast out, how much more of that background that we're getting. But as we increase that, that starts to go away. Now, typically I don't use a lot of contrast with my setup here, so I'm going to keep that set at 0. All right. And then we've got our brightness. Same kind of thing. You can see how it's darkening that up. And again, we're seeing those little dots from the background. So that's kind of telling us that we want to lighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to bring this down. We'll get it about a -20 there for the brightness. And then next is our gamma here. Gamma is kind of very similar to a lighting and darkening. So I'm going to kind of bring this down a little bit more. And we see really up around here where it's highlighting that. Bring that back to like a 0. So you can see as we're increasing that, we're kind of losing some detail there. Probably keep it about a 0.825 then. And then what we have is we have our enhance radius and our enhance amount. What this is really doing, and I'll kind of zoom in a little bit more so we can see it, that's really starting to highlight our edges around here. All right, so a radius is just how far that's kind of going out. So we're going to increase that up to maybe around a 4. And then our amount here, we can kind of see as we're increasing this up, how it's kind of sharpening up some of those edges around there. Now, you want to be very careful when you're playing around with this enhance amount. If you go too high, you're going to get a really kind of blurry look out of it. It's almost kind of cartoonish. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drop this back down. Get it about, I'm going to get it about the 200 range. I kind of find is a nice setting there. All right. So with that all adjusted there, we've got our original one here on the left and our engravable one here on the right. So I'm not going to save any settings here or anything like that until we run a sample, make sure it looks good, and then I can save these out as test samples, slate settings, any of those things there. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here. So there's our image there. So the another important part that you want to do after we're done adjusting this image, we always want to come up to our preview. Just to double check to see how our preview is looking. You know, make sure it's not coming out something like that. We should see like the basic image here. We'll go ahead and play it. Slow this down just a little bit here. And really what I'm kind of looking for on this one is I want to make sure that that laser head isn't coming over here and engraving anything on the background. I really just want this face right here. All right, and we'll go ahead and hit OK here. Now, if we preview this, we don't like the look that it's giving us. We can always go back here, right-click again, and come here to adjust our image. And you can see all of our settings have saved here. So we can tweak this in a little bit more if we need to. And also, because I added in that shape properties, I can also make some quick adjustments here as well. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and send this over to our Lazer. I'm going to go to Lazer. We're going to do a center setup. That's my cuts and layers. We're doing some slate here, so I'm going to keep it at 28 speed. And slate's a little bit softer stone than, say, granite, so we can dial that power down just a little bit. So I'm going to drop that down to, say, a 19, and I'm going to do a 17 on the men. I've been playing a little bit more around with this max power and min power, and I'm really finding that in LightBurn, it does a really nice job of shading and giving you kind of a gradient there when you kind of offset that max power and min power just slightly. I'm not talking about extreme, so don't set this to like 30 and 19 or anything like that. Try to keep it within like a 2 to 5 amount there. So if you're doing 19, obviously 14 is probably going to be a little bit too low of power on there. But I think 17 should do us fairly well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. We'll go ahead and send that over to our machine now. Had a little bit of communication issue. There we be. All right, let's jump over to our machine now and let's get in focus here. All right, so I've got my piece of slate already inside here. I went ahead and kind of measured out, find my center mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and focus in. There. Double check, even this is a small piece, I just want to double check. A little bit off there. Now when you're doing photos, focus is really, really important because we're doing a lot of really fine detail. So we want to make sure that we're not too far away or too close there. All right, just double checks. We did make a few adjustments there. All right, so I'm going to move this to my center mark here. Adjust it. I'm going to go ahead and hit my origin. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring my laser head down and try to make sure that I'm straight. Now with some of the slate that we have, it's really kind of chipped, rocky to give you that nice kind of rustic look to it. So I kind of come down towards the bottom here and run that left and right. Slightly. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape twice to send my laser back to my origin point. We're going to go ahead and frame out. All right. We're looking pretty good there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to very carefully hold down my piece of material here, and I'm just going to peel my tape off here. All right, there we be. Go ahead and shut our lid here. And we're going to go ahead and hit start, and let's see what we can get going. All right, while that's running, I'll jump back over here, and if anybody has any questions or anything, I'll be more than happy to answer them as we're going along here. So I've got somebody asking here. Let me backtrack here. So I'm asking settings for the black poster board. So really with the black poster board, every machine is going to be a little bit different. We are using a 100-watt laser here with a 2-inch lens. So typically on something like that, I normally run around a 17 power. If you've got something like an 1812, 2616, you may need to bump that up slightly. I always recommend just grabbing some poster board, give it a quick test just to see that you're getting the look that you want out of it. And then again, LightBurn has got this really nice update here. Let me show you this if you missed it in our last class here, but they've got this library. And so what I can actually do is actually save these settings once I run a sample and I find that they work well for future use. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. I can name my material here. We'll call this slate. I don't have a thickness or anything like that. I can add in a title here, a description, any of that stuff, and go ahead and hit OK. Oh, it's going to call it slate. And we'll call this photo engraving, or just photo. All right, and there it is there. So if I ever have to come back, I can actually just open up my library, select this, and then just assign to whatever layer that I'm using. So example here, go back to our, so we're at 2819. So say I was to change this, say we were doing tumblers, for example. So 10, and we'll just say 55. All right. And I want to change that back now to slate. All I'm going to do is make sure that that layer is highlighted, come down to my library, select my photo, and assign to layer. And now all my speed and power settings are back now. So I have somebody else asking if I was doing a photo on a powder-coated tumbler, would I go through the same process? So yes, if you're doing any kind of photo processing, this is basically a process in LightBurn to do that. Now, Dolly, I do have another video out there showing that process on putting a photo on a tumbler. We were actually using, I believe, Corel Photo Paint and PhotoGrave for that, but that's basically going to be very similar to this one here. Having somebody ask me, do I always set my origin in the center? No, I do not. It really just depends on what I'm doing and, quite honestly, how I'm feeling for the day. Just depending on, again, the image and the material that I'm using. For prime example, like tumblers, my personal preference is I like to use a left center. If I'm typically doing something square, like let's say like a monument, for example, I'm probably going to start that maybe on the bottom center or left, right, or left or right, bottom or top. Again, it's very fluid, and it can change, again, based off that material that you're using. Looks like our photo's coming along nicely. Thank you very much there, Nick. I appreciate you guys all showing up, and hopefully, you know, I hear all the time everybody enjoys these classes. That really does make me feel good. I really enjoy doing these classes with you guys. The more people we can get on board, the better. Hopefully you find them informative, pick up some tips and tricks here. And I try to be very versatile with some of these, and I'll try to do a lot better of working with, I know a lot of people want LightBurn content, so I'll try to work better with LightBurn while still touching the Corel Photo Paint, PhotoGrave, and Corel Draw as well. So I'm asking if LightBurn is more for images versus RDWorks. That's kind of an odd, difficult question to answer. So both LightBurn and RDWorks, okay, are operating platforms. So basically they're just programs to help you control your machine and communicate with the controller that's inside your machine. Now, the differences with LightBurn is it does add in a little bit more design aspect to that platform than, say, RDWorks, where RDWorks is more of just simply an operating platform. So LightBurn does a fantastic job of tracing out images, doing a lot of vector art, simple text. There's a lot of benefits to this. Photo processing, I still feel like it's lacking a little bit on being able to edit a photo or do any kind of correction. So if you're in a real life scenario and you have a photo that's a little rough that could use some photo editing, LightBurn unfortunately doesn't have those functions quite yet. Now, LightBurn does a fantastic job of coming up with updates, and they are constantly improving things. So I have no doubt in my mind that, later on down the road, we're probably going to see some of those photo editing tools, or at least I kind of hope so. Now, with that being said, there is one thing that you can do in LightBurn, which is doing a mask. So if we needed to kind of cut out this area here, for example, looks like our material's done. I'll go ahead and finish this demonstration. But this is actually really simple to do. I can come over here to my left-hand side toolbar. I can grab a shape here, let's say a square. Draw it like so. I'll go ahead and grab my pick tool. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go Apply Mask to Image. Just like so. Now you can see that my image is still in the background, so I can move this square around. Get to my square here. Or anywhere around in that image to kind of adjust that. Or actually, I'm moving my image around in my square. But then once I have that kind of centered where I want it, what I can do is I can select everything again. I can right-click, and I can flatten image to mask, which is basically going to just kind of crop that photo right to the shape that I'm doing here. Now, that can be also used for a variety of shapes. You don't have to just use square or round or anything like that. Let me back up a little bit here. Get rid of that. So say I wanted to do a star, for example. Just going to right-click this star, copy my image. I'm going to come back here, right-click, and paste. So from this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my star. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to trace out my image. What I can do is I can increase this up, bring it inside here, and do the same thing. I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to right-click, Apply Mask to Image, like so. All right. I'm going to go ahead and grab our photo here. All right, I got a camera here so we kind of see the photo a little bit better. All right. And there we go. So we can see we've got some really nice detail here. The eyes seem to come out quite a bit. We've got some nice shading up here around the nose, around those whiskers. I could have probably dialed down that extent a little bit more. Other than just to kind of maybe make it a little bit sharper. But you can kind of see by going a little bit too high with that enhanced edges, it's extend and photograph, I apologize. You can kind of see where I've made it just a little bit kind of fuzzy at. Somebody asking if we can add captions. Yeah, I definitely will look into that for you, Steve. Oh, see, somebody already responded back to you. But yeah, so that's basically, you guys saw, I mean, we started this pretty much on time here. We got the ball rolling, and I mean, in about 20 minutes, we had a nice photo engraved image there. Like I said, you can do a lot more with this. I would recommend testing out. These are just some of the files that I've kind of played around with, or settings that I've played around with that I find that work pretty consistently. Now, that's not to say that every photo is going to be exactly the same, and these settings are always going to work with you. So always, always, always test out. Like I said, get yourself some poster board there. Run a sample on that, and kind of adjust accordingly from there. We've got some more on here. Using LightBurn, you can send the image directly to the machine, bypassing the controller. Is there an advantage or disadvantage to doing that? Well, you're not actually sending it to the controller. You're basically, well, you are sending it directly to the controller, to the machine. So again, what LightBurn does is it kind of works as a little bit of a design aspect and operating platform. So yes, you can do a little bit of design, send it right to the machine, compared to using, like, say, CorelDRAW, where you're saving out or exporting out of that and then importing that into here and then adjusting your settings. I get that question a lot on what I prefer to use. Do I prefer to use LightBurn? Do I like Corel or RDWorks? And my answer is normally always the same. It's whatever I'm trying to achieve. I go back and forth between these programs a lot. I use them both at the same time a lot of times. I am a lot more proficient with CorelDRAW and Photograve, but I've been working with them for a number of years now. So I am a kind of a creature of habit, though I do shy a little bit more and lean towards that direction there. But honestly, like, I'm playing around with LightBurn, and I can honestly say, like, compared to when they first came out a few years ago, they have made leaps and bounds as far as improving this program. And again, I have no hesitation in saying that I feel like they're going to have more updates coming out and be a lot more photo friendly. Again, the downside, of course, is you don't have those tools in there, so we'll see what the future brings us. Frank's being late here. I don't know, I was getting a little bit of worried about you, Frank. So, but if you guys have any more questions, I know this was kind of a quick one today. And I know this is going to be our last one for a little bit. I'm actually going to be going out to our Las Vegas office to kind of help out there for a little bit, which is why I don't really have a lot of videos coming out this next month. But we will be picking back up in June. I do have some confirmation as well that we're going to dive a little bit more into using design software like photo editing and LightBurn dithering with a fantastic guest that's coming in July. His name is Chris Alexander. He is a fantastic artist. He's kind of got his own process, but he does phenomenal work. So I'm hoping to be able to bring him in here, and he's going to talk to you guys, kind of showcase a little bit of his processes and how he does things as well. So a lot of good things coming here in the future. So somebody's asking about poster board settings on a 2616. Again, I would always kind of recommend just testing out. You know, all of our laptops come with an image in the AP Lazer file folder, and it's a Tiger image, and that's basically an image that's ready to go. It's a photographic image, so it's already been dithered. So it's a great sample image that you can kind of test out and dial out between different settings to find those right settings for your poster board. And again, I would always recommend, once you have those settings, going into your library and just saving those for future use. So if we don't have any more questions here, we'll go ahead and kind of cut it a little bit short today. Normally it's about an hour. We've got about a half hour in here. Hopefully you guys found this informative. I appreciate y'all being here with me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday and have a better weekend. Until next time, bye everybody.